Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Six Rings King Show on a new night, Monday night now, baby. We're really excited, actually, to have Eric McLean on the show here, college football analyst, co-host of The Huddle. Coach, yes! All right!
First touchdown of the year.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah. You know the name already. It's Mercy. Ha ha. It's a six-ring Kane show. Can't forget the name, yo. Got Jazz, Blue, Vision, DJ, break the game code. Ain't no changing them, ain't no breaking them. We'll put live from the Hard Rock Stadium. Ball 14 for the orange and green. You see the six-ring champs. It's more than a dream. This is life on the field. Beyond 100 yards of Hurricane that's never still put a damage to your squad.
What's wrong with us? Seriously.
What's wrong with us? We're Miami Hurricanes fans.
Welcome to the Six Rings Kane Show, a show dedicated to Miami Hurricane sports, featuring the legendary Larry Bluestein, Jazz Santana, Vish, and Danny Gillette. Let's go Canes.
Hello and welcome to the Six Rings Kane Show. I am obviously not Jazz Santana. Jazz is under the weather a bit, so I am taking on the hosting duties today, joined as always by DJ and Blue. How's it going, guys?
Great. You know, I mean, kind of got the game from Saturday out of our system, and now it's time to move ahead and see what happens this week. You know, you have to go into the game, Vish, with even though, you know, this season has really been a disappointment, but it could help a little bit, you know, a win and get into the off season, get those extra practices going and give the guys something to go into spring with. And if not, you know, we've been in this situation 6 times this year. So if not, you know, or 5 times, whatever, 6. If not, it's not, you know, what are you going to do? But we know the reality that the future is certainly where this team is headed. I mean, obviously that if you're a realist and looked at the 22 season, you saw that, hey, there's a lot of pieces that needed to be replaced, and they're starting, as you see. And I feel good about this program moving ahead.
Yeah, that was, GJ, I'd love to get your thoughts. That was actually so one of the interesting things is, again, shout out to Evan Sonis and the people at Miller's Ale House for hosting us on a watch party. So one thing I did completely differently this time is I was not looking at Twitter during the game, and I was like, you know, the game didn't go well, obviously, but, you know, all things, no one expected to win that game. I know it's a sad state of affairs that we say that, but it's the truth. And I was pleased with the way we fought back. Like you said, a lot of the young kids were in there fighting to the end of the game. So I was like, overall, I felt better about the program after the game than before it. And boy, when I opened my timeline up on Twitter, did I experience something completely different. So DJ, what were your feelings kind of coming out of that game?
Well, I mean, you know, people wanted this Miami Hurricane, you know, program to really kind of go 9-3 and win immediately. And I think even I said at the beginning of the season that, you know, 9-3 might be a realistic goal. But when you look at a program like Clemson and how much depth they have and how much of a solid foundation they have, then you kind of look at Miami and say, okay, this is where we need to get to. Miami is not there yet. Can they get there? Absolutely, especially with the very talented 2023 recruiting class coming in. But, you know, Saturday was a good reminder that, you know, we still need to build, and it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, much to the chagrin of some fans probably, but I do feel confident about the direction that the program is headed. And, you know, I think this was a good kind of measuring stick, not to see if we could compete with Clemson this year, but to see what needed to be addressed for the future.
Yeah, and as much as, you know, I felt we competed with that. I mean, if you saw our pregame show, we kind of talked about everything that, you know, that we can't have this thing happen, that thing happen. It all happened within 5 minutes. They immediately drove down and scored. We're like, we can't let them score early. We don't want to play from behind. We said, you know, Jakari Brown's going to have 4 or 5 key throws he just has to make. He missed, you know, on the second play of the game, missed a touchdown. So kind of spiral. I was impressed that we dug deep and kind of fought back. And then that middle part of the game, we did kind of play it even. Blue, I'd like to go with you with this one first. So obviously, a lot of focus has been on the offense. 98 yards. It's certainly not the output you want. What was your overall kind of take on the approach and what were on the offense? Obviously, we eventually pulled Brown and put in Garcia. What were your overall thoughts on kind of how the offense performed?
Is that DJ or me?
Blue.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Wow. I think it showed that, that this team has the kids, they have the players. There's lack of experience, a few players here and there. I even had people, like text me or call me up after the game and tell me, you know what, Garcia's not bad. He shows a lot of, promise for a kid that hasn't gotten a lot of reps, So I think from that standpoint, I just, like DJ said, I want to get into the off season because I think what's going to happen is that once we get to spring, you're going to see a lot of kids. And you saw Francis Mauagoa the other day after they finished beating St. Francis Academy, said, okay, on to the next step. Welcome to University of Miami. So when you've got that and you've got kids like that, and I heavily think that the transfer portal, guys, is going to be used like it's never been used before, mainly because, like I said last week, you have a bunch of kids in there now that are maybe sophomores or juniors that are looking at these freshmen who are demanding all this NIL money and saying to themselves, wow, how are they getting all this money when they haven't even taken a snap? But yet here I am, a 2-3 year performer. And I think you're going to get that. And I think you're going to see a lot of kids who feel, if I go to Miami, I can get in there right now. You look at happened with Young this year. You look at happened with, Messidor and guys like that who really, you get 4 or 5 more of those type of guys with the incoming class. This whole thing changes, guys. It really does, because you get a couple of key players. And this conference is kind of strange. Look at North Carolina lost to a Georgia Tech team that, that looked awful against Miami. So it won't take very much to get into that mainstream. You're not going to get it. It's going to be a couple years before you get into Clemson's rarefied air. But, that's the way it is. They have a 10-year running start on you. But I think you can get right in that mix with everybody else, play yourself over 500 into the 7-8 win range by next year. And people, even though they're not going to be totally satisfied, I don't know why, but you got to build. And I think that 2 years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to we'll be on this program. We're going to go, oh, wow, remember 22? Wow, that was crazy. And I think that's what's going to happen. I just think there's too many things working behind the scenes that are positive. And I know that everybody, get rid of Gaddis. He's the worst play caller. Come on. You know what? If he's doing this next year or the year after that, then, there's some validity to it. But right now, he's got nobody to work with. He's doing what he can do. I'm sure everybody can be second guessed. I just think that, and here's another thing. Even non-University of Miami fans have said, you know what? The thing about Cristobal is from the beginning of the game to the end, he never stops his enthusiasm. And that's catching. You see a lot of these coaches that are down 35-0, and they're just moping around, pushing people. But Mario's always in people's face, trying to get them going. And, Vish, DJ, he hates what's going on more than anything. This is a guy who's a winner. Even when he was at FIU, he found a way to win. And then he surrounded himself at Alabama with some really good people, and he learned how to win there. He went to Oregon, and he kind of won there. So this is hurting him inside. But I'm sure after he takes a couple of steps back, he goes, you know what? So to speak, Rome wasn't built in a day. This isn't going to happen overnight. And I just think that we're going to see progress this coming spring. And I'm excited about the spring. I really am, because I think that the team transforms quite a bit. You're going to see a whole transformation, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you touched on some stuff there. So I find it hard not to at least place a lot of the blame on Gaddis when 98 yards is, come on.
Yeah.
Like the players don't justify that output. With that said, I'm struggling with people saying it's all on him or really. When, you see, I think Clemson was really the first game where I felt And I think Ja'Cory Brown gets some credit for this. They were so worried about him running. They
Right.
were letting receivers run free. And he missed throws or didn't make throws. I mean, some of these, that play that he got a safety on, the whole team was wide open. I honestly don't know where he was looking because no one was covered. The primary receiver's wide open the flat for an easy pitch and catch for like 7-8 yards. He's staring at him the whole time. I can't believe the ball doesn't come out. But then if you look around the rest, they released, I think it was Skinner in the slot, wide open for a touchdown. I think Mallory's 25 yards down the field, wide open too. He probably wouldn't have scored because there was safety down there, but
Right.
they got a safety on that play. So I'm not sure where that's on the play call and stuff like that. You know, if he throws the route to Skinner, that's another 90 yards and a touchdown. You know, the stats look a little better. That's still not good enough, right? But so this game in particular, I found it a little bit harder to not just look and say, look, your guy's open. You got to hit those throws. That's just some of what happens when you play a freshman quarterback. But even, you know, some of the simple throws, like there was a 3rd and 10 where Restrepo's in the slot, runs an out route, wide open. He misses him by 5 yards. I mean, how do you play call around that? I don't know. And so but to me, this was like the apocalypse because you can see some of the plays clearly worked and then the throws were just missed, right? And those are throws like Van Dyke's in there, he makes those throws. On the other hand, like you can't defend 98 yards.
No.
So it's
I'm not
like,
going to defend it. But
yeah,
at
so
the
it's kind of
same
like
time,
blame all the way around in this instance. And I think on Mario, his task is going to be, you know, in this offseason, like you said, as we get to the offseason, we got one more game to play, and if we win it, a bowl game. But, you know, looking at overall what was the root cause, some of it's going to be players, some of it's going to be coaches, some of it might be coaches' responsibilities, right? Maybe only thing Will knows is if people get fired, right? Because then you'll say, okay, this guy's gone. You can make a lot of changes without firing people. You can say, hey, you know, one of the issues we have is this guy's stretched too thin. He's got too many responsibilities. Some of this someone else needs to pick up so we can focus on these other things. Like there's a lot of ways to change things up without firing a coach. And his job, certainly a lot of the players are going to change over. So I think that's going to happen regardless. But from a coaching standpoint, you know, it's his job to look at the whole staff and say, okay, clearly this offense is not acceptable the way we played this year. Why? What is the path to making it acceptable? And does that involve switching the coaches up, or does that involve changing responsibilities or changing the way we practice? I think one thing that does need to be looked at is, Blue, you mentioned Garcia. Like, neither he or Brown have looked good at all throwing. And, you know, these are highly touted kids. And look, they're going to miss throws. You play a freshman, they're going to miss reads. All of that is going to come into play, right? But yeah, I mean, Brown looked okay again. It looked pretty good throwing the ball against Georgia Tech. I mean, Garcia has never looked comfortable this year, and so it's hard for, you know, maybe they need to look at how are they coaching these quarterbacks, right? And again, that does not mean you necessarily have to fire all the coaches. I think we're so used to. I said this earlier, and I'll repeat this now, and then I'm going to throw it to DJ. We are so used to having coaches that are so obviously not qualified for their position that the answer is always fire them.
Yeah.
Because when you're looking at people, you're like, that person should not be the coordinator, offensive, defensive, whatever at the University of Miami. They have to go. In this instance, all of our coaches, at least on paper, are very well qualified for the position they're in. Neither of them are above, you know, their station. They all pretty much came from other P5 schools doing the same job.
Yeah.
So that's not the issue. And I think we're struggling as a fan base to think, okay, now we have qualified people underperforming. What do you do with that? Because our solution's always in the past been fire them, because of course you should fire them. That guy shouldn't be the coach anyway, right? But we don't have that situation now. Fortunately, unlike the previous inhabitant of these parts, Mario's not going to give a crap what we say. He's going to go do his evaluations and make whatever changes he thinks are needed. And he talked about that on the radio this morning, you know, when he was saying, yeah, we're going to evaluate everything in house, and that's what he's going to do. DJ, your thoughts on that offensive performance?
I didn't think it was very good at all, quite honestly. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and bash it this whole show, but I think what we're seeing here is with a rebuild that this program is going to need to have, and with all of the new faces that Mario and the coaching staff are bringing in, we're seeing development in real time, and sometimes that does not look pretty at all. I think that's not the only reason why we struggled on Saturday, for instance, but I do think that an in-house evaluation, not firing coaches, but maybe kind of just assigning different duties and saying, okay, we need to do this better next year in order to compete. We failed at this in 2022. Let's try to shore it up for 2023. I think, kind of that in-house evaluation, like you said, is, an extremely important thing to do because, I haven't been happy at times with Josh Gaddis play calling, but I don't think all of the blame falls on him. I mean, I just think, there's a lot of new pieces and there's a lot of development that needs to be done, and it's not going to happen overnight. And I think, honestly, you said you didn't look at Twitter really on Saturday, Vish. I looked at Twitter, and
DJ
fans are
did.
struggling with that. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I did after the game. During the game, I was just watching with like my friends, people like Jazz, and we're all like, all right, like, you just want the team to play well. I guess for me, I'm in the acceptance phase of my grief. So I was just like, look, I know how this is gonna go. So I didn't really feel like, oh, come on, if we can just make a play here, then we're gonna win. So when the team really, I felt played hard the entire game. Again, the first quarter, really just everything went wrong, including like Clemson making some ridiculous catches in traffic too. Just like we just could not. I mean, they showed like where we want to get to, right? You saw a lot of that in the first quarter, and even that crackback block they called on 9 was questionable because he pulled out of the block and didn't really even hit him. If you get that play, you're up at midfield, you're feeling a lot better about yourself. Obviously, it's the Restrepo throw. You have a touchdown the second play of the game that changes things a lot, just in terms of mindset. We weren't going to win anyway. Let's just be blunt about that. They're clearly better. But, after everything kind of went the other way, we were in a Florida State situation, except they responded this time. And to me, that's the character building we're talking about. And so that's why I was generally pleased that I get on Twitter and it's all like, this is the worst team I've ever seen. It
was a mess.
I've seen worse at Miami. So I don't know what you're talking about. I've definitely seen worse teams.
Twitter was a mess.
We had a quarterback complete one pass once.
That was a Covington time, or was
this was Kirby Freeman. We almost won that game. We lost in overtime. He threw a touchdown. It was like a 78-yard touchdown. He threw one pass that he completed, and it was a touchdown.
Kirby Freeman, there's a name.
Yeah, I mean, so we've had worse teams than this. I think the frustration here is we had higher expectations for this team than what has shown up, and I think the other times we've been down, like you mentioned, the Covington that 97 team, we knew there were no scholarship players. It was going to be a bad year going in. 2007 was the other team that I mentioned where we only had the 2 quarterbacks on scholarship, and it was Freeman and Wright. Like we knew, and then Wright was injured in that game, so it's like the only call. You couldn't even pull it. We don't have another quarterback on the roster, right? So we knew going into that year this is going to be bad. I think in this year we felt we had, even if you were being a pessimist, no one had 5 and 6 after 11 games. So I think, we're sitting here, and even the A&M game, even though it was a loss, we felt like, okay, that's a good team. And when we were clearly better than them, this is going to be a good season. It turns out they're actually just bad too. So it's just like the perfect storm of like raising our expectations and having the bottom fall out. I think makes it feel a little bit worse than, we've had worse teams than this for sure. All right. So let's talk the other side of the ball, because I think there was a lot of encouraging things on defense. Blue, we'll start with you. Do you want to give us your take on how the defense overall performed?
I'll tell you what. You know what? I mean, the front seven really. I mean, when there weren't big plays, and let's face it. I mean, but also let's also look at Clemson was without their 2 best offensive linemen. They lost one of them for the year now. The kid from down here, I was talking to his mom the other day, and he had an ACL. So, but that being said, I just thought that they showed some life penetration. They tackled a lot better. You got to remember. I mean, this isn't a team that has the continuity. I thought it's awfully tough if you don't get the pass rush sometimes for your secondary to do anything effectively. But I saw a lot better play from some of the other guys. Cam Kitchens, even though he didn't come up with those type of plays like he did, the week before against Georgia Tech, you could just tell he's a leader. He's in there talking, he's pointing stuff. I watched him in a couple of plays. They played the run, at times. I mean, Shipley's a beast. I mean, there's no other way about it. I mean, and this isn't the first team he's going to, shred. So, but I thought they contained as much as they could. They had, I really thought they had some defensive schemes, set up. I mean, and plays. And I'll give Steele a credit. Because, he tried to make some adjustments. And you said, Vish, there was a point there, probably in the middle of the game, where Miami's playing them even. They got him off the field a couple of times. That was important. So from a defensive standpoint, I really, really thought they played a lot better than I thought. I really thought that they would get shredded in every which way, but they didn't. And just shows you, that people get upset at some of the coaches sometimes. And remember, the coaches spend the entire week devising plans to put the players in a position to make plays. Now, if the player isn't in that position or he's there and doesn't make the play, you can't go blaming the defensive coaches. I mean, if they've worked on it and they put him there and they're, perfect position, and the guy whiffs on a tackle. I mean, and that happened twice the other day, but it's happening a lot less than it was. I look back in the beginning of the year, and the tackling and I think you and I said, Vish, maybe it was the A&M. No, it was Southern Mississippi game, where they had a couple of plays there, like on the long pass plays, and they weren't tackling worth a darn. But yeah, no, all I was looking for is improvement. And they improved a great deal from the beginning of this year, and they looked. I don't care what the score says. I think they look respectable more times than they didn't. And that's, to me, that's refreshing.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those situations where the score definitely did not reflect the performance. They got 2 garbage time touchdowns that kind of exploded the 40 points out there when it was not a 40-point defensive performance at all.
Right.
And I mean, we saw on display. I mean, looking at the comparing the offenses, just. Their guys are making plays that our guys just aren't capable of. That first touchdown that they got, I mean, that was covered. He threw it into coverage, and the guy makes a tough catch, and they're like, what do you do with that defensively? You had the coverage. Clemson's good for a reason, right? And then
I think
there was a bit of that, and as the game kind of settled down, even Clemson's not going to keep making catches and plays like that, and I think that evened out, and then the middle part of the game shut them down, forced turnovers, did everything he needed to do, and then the bottom
they got off the field, which was good. Sometimes they don't do that.
Yeah, and they gave the offense opportunities time and time again, including the touchdown was basically created by the defense. So they more than did their job there, and then eventually you wear out, and those last 5 minutes they gave up the 2 touchdowns, one off of a turnover that just made the score not representative in terms of how they played, but they competed though. Even on that last touchdown, Dabo's trying to run it in with 20 seconds left. They were still competing, and at this stage, I know, given where the season started, saying moral victories isn't great, but that was good that we kept fighting. It was kind of the opposite of the Florida State game where everyone packed it in early.
And before DJ says his part, the thing that I like the most, especially with Mario, is like you look back at the Florida State game, and during our post-game press conference, one of the reporters said, "Listen, are you upset that Florida State was trying to run up the score, passing, late in the game?" And he looked at him, he goes, "Why? It's part of the game." He goes, "The shoe will be on the other foot one day." See, and I like that because, people are, sometimes you get so irate at that, and then, wait till he gets, but Mario's got that inner fire burning that I like. And don't you think for a second that he's not putting all this stuff in his memory bank, because in a couple of years, if Clemson comes down and Miami has a chance to rub it in their butts, they will. And there's not a thing that Swinney could say or anybody else, but it's tough right now, like I said, for guys who have won. And you said it, Vish, that a lot of these guys didn't just drop out of the air. They came from really good programs, Power 5 programs where they won. So this is a trying time for everybody, and the best thing in the world is there's not a lot of finger pointing, because if they're finger pointing, they're leaving. And you know what? See ya. You know, I mean, you got to be a team player. You got to take wins and you got to take losses, and I think this team's going to be better off for it over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and you definitely see, some kids are already jumping in the portal, and some of them it's because they don't see a future playing time. Others just don't want to, they're not in for the culture that we're creating, and that's fine. Like, I mean, this is the reality is, they got to make their business decisions, and it'll in my opinion accelerate this rebuild to get, it's better to have an empty seat in the locker room than have someone not bought in filling that seat. And so I think long term that'll pay off. So DJ, let me throw this to you on your thoughts on the defensive performance Saturday.
I thought the defense played well given the circumstances. I mean, when you look at a team like Clemson, they've been so good for, probably the last 7 or 8 years that what we saw on Saturday was kind of a culmination of just building a winning culture, building a winning football team, hammering home execution, hammering home what it takes to win a football game. And Miami, at least this edition of the program, doesn't know how to do that enough to make waves nationally, so to speak. They don't have the stability that Clemson has managed to have, and that's going to take time, obviously. But
Right.
As far as the defense is concerned, I was very impressed with Cam Kitchens. He had 13 tackles. I believe he had 3 interceptions last week. So he's so he's played really well over the past couple games. And, it's stuff like this where I know we don't like moral victories, but the continued strong play of a guy like Cam Kitchens, is something that he can build off heading into the spring, and, something that, good play from Cam Kitchens could help heading into next season.
Jeez, what the hell is that?
That is you, Lou. Go ahead, DJ, if you weren't done yet.
No, I'm done.
Okay. All right. So just a couple of questions in the chat. When we talk about culture, talk about what Mario is trying to build here, which is very different from. I mean, I am somewhat sympathetic to some of these kids because they signed up for Manny Diaz's country club, and that's not what they're going to experience here. So some of them are like, "This is not what I signed up for the yacht and the tackling dummy and the social media stuff, and not this." And so I don't think it's any surprise that some of them have taken to social media voice frustration, because that's the program they signed up for is the one that does things like that, because the head coach did things like that. So, it's not just, it's easy to say, oh, we just bring the winning culture. That's not really what we're just talking about. Like, just the program approach is very different than what it was when most of these kids were recruited. And some of them are going to be receptive to that, and some of them aren't. I wouldn't be surprised if Mario kills the social media entirely at some point. Just like, none of you guys are allowed to go on there.
Wow.
I would not surprise me if that comes out eventually. Just because he's probably sick of answering questions about it, and it doesn't do a service to what he's trying to do here. Meanwhile, the previous coach, felt like he spent more time on Twitter than in film.
Yeah.
So it's a culture change. If you put yourself in the player's shoes, and you came to play for that guy, and now you have this guy. Some people are like, wait, that's not what my college experience was going to be. So I think we're seeing some of that, and it is what it is. I mean, I will note that as far as I know, Penn State has not taken any of them. So and some of them are defensive players. So we'll see how much Manny believed in the guys he recruited, because certainly, some of these are his recruits. Everyone on the defense is his recruit. He was a defensive coordinator before. So he had a long time here. And if he's not going into the portal and trying to snatch up some of these defensive players, it might tell you something about, the caliber of player he recruited if he thought they were good enough to play for him here, but not good enough to play for him at Penn State.
Yeah, especially like Frierson, Roberts, guys like that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if he goes and says, yeah, that kid should play for me, or if that was only just here. So, all right, before we pivot, all right, I'm gonna get out of my comfort zone here a little. Speaking about a comfort zone, before we pivot to a pit, I'm gonna try to read a Manscaped ad. So bear with me.
Go.
This could end poorly. Jazz did give me the ad copy, which was for the old one, so I'm gonna try this. Hopefully, we can see the screen here. Was that Prize Picks? Wow, we started off not well.
Nope, I see Manscaped on here.
You see Manscaped. I see Prize Picks. All right,
Oh,
let me
okay.
get to let me see if I can get to oh, did it go away? It sure did. All right, things aren't. I'm also like not. You can probably tell not my normal location because I'm in Miami. Let's try this again.
Oh, you're down in South Florida now.
Yeah,
okay.
we got Pitt this weekend, man. Big game.
You're actually coming out for that game too.
Well, no, it's Thanksgiving, so I'm in town. But
yes,
okay. While I'm here, I will attend the Pitt game.
There you go.
All right, one more time. I think I can do this correctly. All right, Manscaped. So again, the ad copy is not so. Chad said, "quote I usually wing it," which is not great for me. But all right, so Manscaped. Actually, I do have the banner here. There we go. There's your offer code. So. Manscaped running a deal on their performance package 4.0. You can get a discount on it. Wow, this is going well. So the lawnmower, so the performance package has the lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the weed whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the crop preserver ball deodorant, the crop reviver toner, boxer briefs, and a travel bag. Jazz has flashed the travel bag multiple times on the show. Hopefully you've seen it. So you give the offer code 5RSN, you get 20% off plus free shipping. So you get both of those things. I know, in the rest of the country, maybe, letting it grow out a little bit there might pay off now when it's cold, but that does not apply to Miami. So get your performance package 4.0. You'll get a discount using the offer code 5RSN, and you'll support the show as well. So, head to manscaped.com, and then at checkout, just enter offer code 5, the number 5, RSN, and you'll get 20% off plus free shipping. So, thanks for supporting the show and our sponsor. And all right, while I'm in here, I might as well do the Prize Picks.
There you go.
Well, let's see this. Let's see if I can. Normally,
I'll tell you just to add an addendum to your previous commercial. I am a user, so I can tell you firsthand. It's big time.
Yeah, and everyone that buys it, that talks to me about it, is like, that stuff it's great. Because if you buy a razor, if you think you just use your normal razor, the lower area of your body is not the same as your face.
No doubt.
So using a facial razor there, you could run into some issues without going.
911 is what the number will be.
So definitely, if you're planning to do some housekeeping down there, definitely
there you go.
Definitely get yourself some Manscaped products to do it safely and effectively. All right, second sponsor for the night, Prize Picks. Well, again, offer code is for this one is 5. The word 5, FIVE. You can set your lineups, and they'll and essentially bet on set your lineups, and then bet on games, on statistics. So right now, obviously, football season is the big thing. World Cup just started. You can put World Cup players in there. Just in time for the season to end, unfortunately, as you know, Jazz and I host an F1 show with Moni Labro. They finally added Formula One to Prize Picks, and then the season's over. But for next year, definitely get in there and set your Formula One lineups again. Offer code 5, and they'll match your deposit. So again, head to prizepicks.com, set your lineups. Way to win some money. Use the offer code 5. You'll get you started there. But another good sponsor, not just of our show, but of the entire 5 Reasons Network, and kind of a fun way to keep up with the games. Fortunately, the Dolphins are good this year, so you can actually watch them for entertainment. But maybe college football, you're kind of maybe your college football team is not quite where you want them to be. This is a good way to keep the games entertaining anyway. So prizepicks.com, set your lineup, drop some money in there with the offer code 5, and make a little money on the side while watching the games. All right, let us pivot to Pittsburgh. So we kind of set the context earlier. The Canes are 5-6. So wow, Jazz was putting notes in the comments. Man, you know how many screens I have open, man? What? I usually have like 400 of them, and I have like different monitors. That's how I'm officially able to move back and forth. And now I'm just working off a laptop. But anyway, okay, mix and match players from different teams and leagues. Thank you. Where were you reading this live on the show? So I didn't have to. All right. So anyway, pivoting to Pitt, we set the contest a little bit. We're 5-6, so the Canes need to win this game to get to a bowl game. So I guess let's just start with that. So I know Blue and DJ, you both earlier said just want to get to the off season, start the transition. So I guess how important do you think it's going to be to win this game to get to a bowl game? I'll start with you Blue, on that.
I mean, to get to a bowl game, you got to win it. I mean, there's no option. I mean, but I think, they usually do well. They come, and I think you brought it up before. They come in with a game with a positive attitude, So to me, I mean, that helped them in the Georgia Tech game on the road. It's helped them in a lot of wins this year when they won. They always had that positive attitude throughout. And even in the Texas A&M game, which you saw firsthand. I really think that this is a program that has an opportunity, to win this game. I mean, really, because they're going to come out on fire. They're going to, obviously Pitt is nowhere near what Clemson is, or really nowhere near what Florida State is right now. I mean, like I said, it's, I think Vish and DJ, they got a really good chance. They really do. I mean, the opportunity to at least send the seniors. You see, that's the important part. I mean, they don't have a ton of seniors, but they do have seniors who've endured some of this crap. And I think they deserve to go out with a bowl game, get those 15 extra days of practice, be in an opportunity where they get to go someplace and get some, some goodies and be recognized, win, lose, or draw. But so I think this is important. From a fan standpoint, I know it's going to be. They may not have a large crowd, but you know what? If you're a fan, you come out and support them. And what everybody who's a fan realizes what this team's about. Really. I mean, I know that sometimes, they go off the rails, but yeah. So to answer your question in a direct way, I think it's important to win this game because I think that if for nothing else, send those seniors out with a good feeling.
DJ?
Send the seniors out with a good feeling, and also, this is something you can build off of as a program if you win, especially heading into 2023. I mean, yes, I know the season is not, what we've all thought it was going to be or what we all wanted it to be, but if you win and, if you win a bowl game, that at least gives you a stepping stone that you can build off of for next season. Sending the seniors out, like Blue said, they've been through a lot while they've been here, and to get them a bowl game win would be absolutely fantastic. And to even get to a bowl game would be absolutely fantastic. So, I do think there is a lot to play for here still, and I do think it will be a good game on Saturday.
Yeah,
Pitt is a tough team. They've always played Miami tough, and I think I'm excited to see what can happen on Saturday because I do think this is a very important game, and there still is a lot to play for, especially for the players on the field themselves.
Yeah, and this has been a season of, I think, missing what we expected in terms of setting preseason goals, but one thing is make a bowl game. So it'd be nice to at least accomplish one thing this year.
Yeah.
That maybe we still have to do. But also, this is a program that's won 2 bowl games in like the last 20 years. Like that blue turf game when Coker was a lame duck coach and coached the last game, and then the first bowl game rigged against West Virginia. That is it.
That was the Colin Kaepernick game, wasn't it, with Nevada Reno?
Yeah, I don't think he was on that team.
Yeah,
but that was against his school. I think he might have been on the team, but wasn't playing. They played someone else.
I remember that game pretty.
Speaking of Kirby Freeman, he won MVP of that bowl game. So,
Jesus.
So yeah, and then the only other one was the Brad Kaya team that went to the. I guess they were calling it Champ Sports Bowl at that point, whatever they were calling that Orlando Bowl.
West Virginia game.
Yeah, that blowout where we dominated. That was a strong performance. That's it. Those are the only 2 bowl wins, and so getting to a bowl game and winning it, even if like that's a BS bowl, who cares? Like that, something we have not done a lot of, and you get a trophy at the end of it. That it will be nice for this program to have some positive stuff happen.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So I think in that sense it matters. Not to mention we've already discussed in previous shows the additional practice time and all of that comes in. But
Sure.
but also just frankly, if we have loftier expectations, preparing for a bowl game is very different than preparing for a week to week game. And we didn't play in a bowl game last year, and it's been very little of that experience for these kids. So getting used to that rhythm. If you think maybe we'll be in a much better bowl game in 2023, hopefully that's not their first bowl experience for a lot of these kids. So
Yeah.
So yeah, I think all of that matters in terms of prep. So let's talk a little bit about Pitt. They're 7-4. They're coming on a 3-game winning streak. Those wins are against Syracuse, at Virginia, and against Duke. The Duke game was last week at home. They won by 2. I think they're a perfect example, Blue, of what you talked about earlier. And the ACC is just crazy because they have losses to Louisville and to Georgia Tech. But
Georgia Tech is the hardest team to figure out.
Unbelievable, right? They beat North Carolina and
Duke and Pitt.
Yeah, they beat
3 quality wins.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable, right? But they also lost to Louisville, who's not a very good team.
No.
But beat Syracuse, who is a good team. So they lost to Tennessee in overtime at the beginning of the year. I think we thought that was 2 probably even teams. Then Tennessee exploded into like a top 10 team. It's like, oh, that Pitt almost took them out right at the beginning. So they've kind of been up and down. But Blue, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on this game? And I guess what are the keys do you think Miami needs to do to win?
They run the ball well. Miami's got to stop the running game. They seem to – they're big up front. They run the ball. Obviously, their quarterback situation isn't what it's been the last couple of years, but and they're always good defensively. I mean, they have a lot of good defensive-minded coaches. Their head coach is a great defensive mind. So I look for it to be a low-scoring game. I think Miami needs, I think, Vish, we use this all the time. You can't make mistakes and you can't turn over the ball. And they do a lot of that in the first 5 minutes of the game. So, no, I think that they, I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a defensive type of game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored. I think because both defenses are capable, of handling each other. I'm not saying that Pitt's a one-dimensional team because they throw the ball a little bit too. So, I expect a really good game. It's going to be competitive. I think that, I think the crowd will feed off of that. A couple of days after Thanksgiving, people are coming and, and like you said, you're in town for that. And there's a lot of people who have come down for that game, probably marked it on their calendar, especially if you live in the Northeast right now, like DJ, and it's like snowing everywhere. I mean, it's not snowing where you're at now.
I was just shaking my head at the cold. It was 19 degrees and I was walking my dog this morning, and it's pretty cold up here.
Yeah, I can imagine it. Or you could be in Buffalo where they've got 9 feet of snow. I mean,
I know.
It hasn't stopped raining here for like.
You're right. It's 2 solid days of rain here.
2 solid days of rain here, but it's warm rain. It's definitely not cold.
No, but no, that's my thoughts. I think
it's a night game too, so we should get hopefully a decent crowd out there.
Yeah, and there's always the Pitt has 14 kids from the state of Florida on the roster, and I think it's exciting. I think it'll be an exciting game. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I agree. I found myself looking, against my better judgment, I found myself looking forward to this game as well. DJ, what are your thoughts on heading into Pitt here?
Pittsburgh's interesting, especially their quarterback, Keaton Slovis. He was one of the more talked about transfers in the offseason, and he's kind of been up and down this year. He has 2,135 yards passing, 7 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Last week he went 15 to 32 on the day, throwing for 198, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. So he is kind of up and down, but I'm just really kind of interested to see, and you guys touched on this, but can Miami get off to a fast start, and can they not kind of lull their way into the second half and then get things going from there? Because, it seems like they've started off slow in many games this season, and there are still things to play for, obviously a bowl bid and things like that. So I'd love to see Miami kind of just start off fast in this game and kind of, set the tempo at their own pace and not play into the hands of Pitt.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But Vish and I say this at every pregame, as they can't make mistakes and turnovers, and they do. And you look back at the Virginia Tech game, you look at the Virginia game. Those are games I think Miami does so well because they're defensive-oriented games, and I think that this has got a lot of those characteristics in this game. And like I said, Slovis was a lights-out kid as a freshman sophomore quarterback at USC, but seems like he's kind of lost his way. And I didn't see Lincoln Riley diving after him to keep him there.
No, I didn't either.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things, though. I think we underestimate, fit and comfort with the system and a coaching staff for a quarterback. And, a lot of these transfer quarterbacks do not work out well. and Derek King's an exception where he came in here and kind of supercharged our offense. A lot of like JT Daniels got benched again. Like he's bounced around. Seems like every program in America at this point. It's just, it's tough if you don't get that stability. Because it takes playing quarterback is really hard. I think our video game culture a little bit. Boy, I'm going to sound old. Now. No. It's much easier when you're hitting a button on a controller. You see the whole field natively because it's all on the same screen.
Right.
It is so hard to play quarterback. You got these huge.
Michael Penix probably is the exception to the rule.
Yeah, no, some of them do work out, but the vast majority do not. And it's tough because the reason is because there's not, I know this probably wink gets violated, but there's not a lot of practice time. It's not a lot of time to get up to speed. You transfer in and you're expected to start immediately. That is a tough thing to ask of anyone.
It is.
Yeah. And sometimes, sometimes it works out, but a lot of times it's just difficult, especially if it's a 1-year deal. And you're going to go in there and hit the ground running immediately. That's not easy to do when you're changing systems, changing terminologies, trying to get used to your teammates, the way your coaches behave in practice, and get all of that in and lead the team starting game one.
Yeah.
It's a lot to get through.
It is. It is.
So speaking of quarterbacks, though, let's talk about ours because Mario hinted pretty heavily today that it looks like TVD might play. Is that the move? I'll start with you, Blue. What would you do, assuming if he's ready to go? Do you go back to him, or I'm assuming it would be him or Jakari? But if you think it should be Jake Garcia, throw that out there too. But I mean, would you go back to TVD at this point? Probably
not. I probably would start Brown. Give him a home start. Let him start at home and see how he does. And it's sort of like that pitching by committee. Maybe I'd do that. Whoever has the hot hand, because you're in a situation now. Because and I've always felt very strongly about this because, you got a guy pitching a no hitter and you think nothing of yanking his butt because the percentages. But if you do it in football, it's like, wow, some unwritten rule that you're losing the team and all that. But listen, everybody has off days, and I would go with the hot hand. I think I'd play them all. I think I'd really play them all. Final home game. I think the fans deserve to see all of them, and I don't think that this is the type of team that has been built into a team process. So they're not gonna. One individual's, is not going to say, I'm not going to play for him. You get that at a lot of schools where, a kid will go out, he'll get yanked because he's not doing very well. And then the offense won't respond around him. And, but to answer your question, I think I would like to see all three of them play.
I think so too. I think, you want to, give the ball to Tyler Van Dyke to see if he can help you get over the hump for that last game. But at the same time, you want to continue the development process with Brown. This is how you build a program. You just continue to develop players and put them in situations, no matter how uncomfortable or weird they might be. And, you continue to build them and help them get better. So I agree with Blue. I'd put, all three out, see what they have, and, continue use this game. Not only you obviously want to try to win, of course, but also use this game as, again, development for the future, because this is going to be not a long process, but a process. And, development is a huge part of it. And it starts, it's basically started the season, and it's going to continue right up until the end. And hopefully, it means a victory and a bowl game bid.
Yeah, to me, it's more, where is this team headed from a future standpoint? I kind of agree with what you said, DJ, in terms of what does look like next year. If you think TBD is here next year,
Right.
And this is going to be his team, which is questionable, right? But hopefully Mario has a better read on the room than we would from outside the program. Then you hand him the keys back to his program and let him go out there and lead this team on senior day. And I think Jakari will definitely play anyway, because one of the things that worries me if we go back to TVD is, Jakari Brown is kind of the running game at this point.
Right.
And without him in there, you're going to lose a lot of that running ability, which, one of the things, it was very easy to watch the Clemson game and say, man, TVD would have hit those throws. But the layer to that is, are those receivers even open if they're not worried, if the defense isn't looking in the backfield to see if Jakari's running? Probably not in some of those cases. Like they're actively like reading the backfield instead of the receiver because they're worried the quarterback's going to run. So you lose that. So I think if TVD starts, I think we'll probably have Jakari in for some plays. I don't think Jake Garcia will play unless it goes bad. But in terms of what they should do, if TVD is the person you think is going to be your starting quarterback next year, then you should put him back in there. And that's not outside the realm of possibilities at all, given the way the season's gone. The other thing is he started to play. I think we all, we remember how he was playing at the end of last year. I remember how he started this year. Right before he got hurt, he started to get it. He started to get comfortable in this offense. They were moving the ball, still couldn't score, which again is a problem that's permeated the whole year. But that the North Carolina, Virginia Tech, and Duke until he got injured stretch, he was playing really well. North Carolina is the best game he's played in his entire career. So he started to get it and it started to click, and then he got hurt. So, if he's looking at that and saying, if I put that on tape for a year, my draft stock's going to go way up, and Miami would love to have him put that on tape for a year. So if that's where you're looking, then I don't see any reason why you wouldn't go back to him. And frankly, Jakari Brown probably needs more work as a passer. I'll quote Jazz since he told me this before his illness, that, he thinks he probably needs another year of seasoning. And I tend to agree with that as a passer.
Yeah.
And so, next year would be great if you still have TVD there to kind of be the starting quarterback and, carry that load and responsibility, but still have, some packages for Jakari as well. Was probably a best case scenario for Miami. So again, we don't know where TVD's head's at. If he's looking elsewhere, he could still go pro because he won't go in the first round, I don't think, but first 3 rounds, certainly a possibility. And the analysis they have to do, I think we kind of forget, is it's not just, where am I going to get picked? It's like, what am I going to get from coming back or transferring? Am I going to improve my stock a lot? Because a lot of these kids, like, they come out and they get drafted in the 5th round, like, oh, you should have gone back to school. And it's like, well, they were going to be a 5th round or 6th round pick the next year too. Like, they weren't going to, that's just what they are, right? If it's measurables and like, well, they're 40 times not going to get better, right? Some of this stuff is just, so I think we tend to, I think we tend to say it's a mistake if they don't get drafted high. If they're not going to be able to improve their draft set, and I do think a quarterback can. So especially for him, who's still hasn't actually played that much. He's played probably a combined season. Yeah. Because he didn't start last year and he didn't finish this one. So he could probably use more quality play on tape. And so I think he's probably a good candidate to come back. But some of these kids just like, yeah, if I'm going to be picked at all, I'll go pro because, start getting paid now and I'm not going to be picked any higher. And, based on what we've seen here, one reason to come back would be, well, maybe this team can make the playoffs next year. I don't think that's the case with our program. So, they're not really played for that either. So, I think some of these players will have some decisions to make too in terms of where they go pro.
I forgot about the 12-team playoff next year, right? Is that next year?
I don't think is that.
Or is it 2 years?
I think it's for 24.
Yeah. What happens next year is the ACC gets rid of divisions, so we're gonna have a We're gonna have a free for all, totally different. We're gonna end the Coastal having won it only one time. So
it's gonna be the Wild Wild West next year.
Yeah, our schedule's tough, so be prepared for that.
Any game against BC, if Miami plays, is a win for Miami. So I don't know how tough it is, but anyway,
the other games, the I think there's NC State, there's Clemson, the non-aligned ones, which are Florida State, Louisville, and Boston College, are not friendly next year. So.
Damn. It's going to be interesting to see. I think the quarterback room is going to be interesting next year, especially if Van Dyke comes back, because then that gives Brown another year or so to develop under Van Dyke. But if Van Dyke goes pro, then I think that Brown could have a chance to step into the starting role. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, well, he's going to have to win it, and that's no, I agree. I mean, we'll say you don't know what's in Van Dyke's head. He could end up at UConn.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know what's in his head. You know where the coaching staff is at. Maybe they're looking to. I mean, obviously, one of the things that to Gas is either credit or fault depending on how you view this, but he has certainly vastly changed the offense depending on who the quarterback is in there. I mean, we went from certainly like their plan A for him and for Mario is I want the quarterback to turn and hand the ball off and get 7 yards whenever I want. And that's not the case right now, but that's definitely so we do force the run quite a bit. But when that didn't work, I mean, he went to that UNC game. I mean, we threw 3 times as much as we ran. And then he had to shift it back when Van Dyke got injured and it became a much more run-oriented team. So
I'd say that's a credit to Gas for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can make the reason I said depending how you view this, because you could make the opposite argument that they need consistency. How is anyone else on the team going to perform if you're just switching up the offense to fit the quarterback? What about the rest of the team? And you could certainly make the case that one of the reasons they look out of sync is because we're running different offenses depending on who the quarterback is. But
good point.
But with that said, what is the one they actually want to run? Like coming into this year, it's no brainer. TVD's the starter, but now that Jakari's got some game under his belt, is he the guy they actually just prefer? Right? It's got to be the way TVD comes back is he wants to come back, and the coaching staff wants him to come back, and basically is going to be like, yeah, you're the starter. This is your team. Otherwise, he's going to. There's no reason he was going to come back and back up Brown. So that's kind of something we don't know yet. So just closing that conversation off, next year. Open the season hosting the other Miami of Ohio.
Yeah, wow.
Then Texas A&M comes to town. September 23rd is at Temple. And then the conference games, we don't have dates yet. At Florida State, obviously. At North Carolina, at Boston College, at North Carolina State. So those are the road games.
That is not friendly.
That is not friendly. And then home is Georgia Tech, Virginia.
Virginia
Clemson,
Tech, or no, they don't play.
No, we don't play Virginia Tech this next year. We play the other two are Clemson and Louisville.
Okay.
So we have Clemson. So kind of in terms of
tough schedule.
Yeah. We have Clemson, NC State, North Carolina, and Florida State. 3 of those 4 are on the road. And then we also have A&M out of conference. So yeah, not a friendly schedule.
Yeah, that's not easy.
Yeah, that is definitely not friendly, but that's how you get tougher. So I am all for that. All right, well, as we kind of move to wrap things up, do either of you guys have any final thoughts on the Pitt game here?
Win. That's my final thought. Win.
Like I said, I just think that Miami's going to come out, play a little bit. I mean, I know they've tried to play for pride this year. I can't say they haven't. I just think things will click. The crowd will get behind them. They'll almost will them into the postseason, and it'll feel good. And we'll have a great show next week, and we'll be able to tell everybody how we said they were going to a bowl at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, let's fingers crossed. Yeah, and also just if you're going to the game, if you get into your seats a few minutes early, cheer the seniors as they come out of the tunnel. That's always a nice thing to do.
Yeah,
Stadium tends to be fairly empty when that happens, but if you can get out of your tailgate a little bit early just to go see the seniors run out on the field, that could be a good thing. All right, so as Blue said, I don't know what we're doing. I'll have to talk to Jazz. Hopefully he's recovered in terms of pregame this weekend, but we'll definitely, as Blue said, be back on next Monday at 8:30 as always. We'll talk about how Miami beat Pitt and is going to a bowl game, and we'll start talking about what bowl game that might be.
Hopefully not the Cheez-It Bowl. I remember the Cheez-It Bowl from 2 years ago. That was at like 4:30 on a Wednesday, and it was very weird.
Okay, well, whatever it is.
I feel like we're gonna get some. Let's first secure the bowl bid, but
and then we'll worry about where we're going. It will
most likely be a mid-December afternoon game based on
probably.
Go to the Bahamas.
I mean, that'd be nice.
I might actually go to the Bahamas.
that would be
up in DC freezing like Bahamas. All right, but we'll definitely be back. But we'll be back Monday with Jazz. Hopefully back by then. So thanks everyone for sticking with us through the show and through the season. One game left, and as always, go Canes.
Go Canes.
The 6 Ring Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Ring Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rings Kane Show. You know.